All right. Peace and greetings, YouTubers. I'm not gonna lie. I don't even think I have the words today, y'all. I totally I'm just as caught off guard as everybody else. Just terrible news. So as we know at this point, or maybe you're just now finding out, but actor Chadwick Boseman has passed away from stage 4 colon cancer. And wow, 2020 is just 2020 said it was just gonna hit us with everything, huh? It just said it's gonna do a number. I guess the year just said, since it's already terrible, let's just give it to you all at once. Like, man, and I guess the lesson you get out of this is really that you really do just have to live every day like it's your last, literally, because you just honestly never know. Crazy. Jeez, I should have did a live, but I don't have the words, y'all. And I guess what gets me the most is like he still worked through everything. So he was diagnosed in 2016. And I mean, so this means he was shooting Black Panther, he was shooting some other projects, in between chemotherapy. And if you've ever lived with somebody, or even if you've had chemotherapy before, that's a process in itself. You're sick all the time. You don't have the energy to do anything. It's hard to keep food down. It's like, I remember even one of my relatives had the chemo pills, and the pills were so toxic, like you can't even touch them with your hands because there's that much, stuff in them that will really do a number on you. And it's like, man, so, the fact that he was able to still shoot such a, high action type film that's very physically demanding, and he still had to, build himself up and get into the right kind of shape for the role, it's like commendable indeed. And it's just crazy that literally he was working, up until his time had come. And it almost reminds me of Minnie Riperton. If you remember, she had cancer as well, and she performed up until she died. Like, it was to the point where she was paralyzed on one side and was still performing, still trying to tour. And I think a lot of people, when they're especially creative, or they're artists, or they really just have a passion for portraying art or portraying anything into to large audiences, or just really any kind of form of expression, when they're passionate about it, there's nothing that will stop them from doing what it is that makes them feel fulfilled. Because Chadwick Boseman, honestly, he could have thrown in the towel when he had that initial diagnosis and said, all right, I'm just gonna slow things down a bit. But I mean, when you see the accolades he was able to accomplish in such a short time. And I also think a cool message that comes out of his experience is that life does not end when you're 25. When you talk about how, once he really started to get on, especially in Hollywood, he was a lot older. And so I think that could also be a lesson that comes to people who sometimes feel like, maybe I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I'm 24, I'm 25, my life isn't together yet. What am I doing wrong? And it's like, oh no, it's just a part of your journey. You know what I mean? But it's almost like things make sense now, because I remember people were talking about pictures that were coming out, and he looked a lot skinnier, and people were wondering, is he sick? Is he okay? And someone like, oh no, it's going to be for a role. And then you saw different articles saying, okay, well, he may not be in Black Panther. And everybody's like, well, what's that about? We don't want nobody else but him, And so and I'm talking about the sequel, and I'm just like, everything has come together. It all makes sense now. It's just so sad. It's fortunate that at least he was able to pass on with the support of his family. I just feel bad for kids globally who may have looked to him as a hero, especially with the the release of Black Panther. I know that a lot of times when you're talking about children that are 3, 4, and 5 years old, sometimes they have a hard time distinguishing between entertainment and television and reality. And sometimes when they see certain actors or certain movies, they assume that sometimes it may be real, or that person is the real individual. And so it's just like, man, kids can't even have a hero in 2020. Terrible. But I think the legacy he will leave behind is a great one. Honestly, there's nothing bad you can say about the man at all. He's very upstanding. He did all the philanthropy work. He did everything. He even went back to HU. He went to Howard and even spoke at their commencement. Literally, I want to say in 2018. If it wasn't 2018, it was 2019. I want to say 2018. And so it's just like, man. I'm really speechless, y'all, while I'm sitting here still spewing out words. But I guess the other lesson that comes out of it is really just making sure those relationships and the people you value, you make sure you give your energy into those relationships. And even if you may be in a gray area with a friend or two, and maybe y'all don't really know where y'all stand, and it's over something petty, it's like, man, you never know where somebody is in life. So sometimes those relationships, if it wasn't a toxic one, and it wasn't something that drained your energy, and it's really ego and pride, and that's the only thing that are keeping you and somebody else from kind of reconnecting, it's like, man, this would be that wake-up call to just say, hey, tomorrow is not promised for everybody. And I just think in this era with everything happening in regards to COVID everything happening in regards to the climate of the country, everything in regards to just people losing their way. And you're starting to see a bunch of things. You're seeing, the suicide rates kind of go up in 2020 because of everything that's been happening, and you're seeing so many people suffer. It's just like you really have to somehow find ways to maintain your inner peace through so much tragedy so that you don't lose it, But he has such a great legacy. If I had a favorite role he's ever played, and I hate that I have to limit this to just acting, but I would definitely say I really, really enjoyed his portrayal of James Brown. I thought he did an excellent job, and I think that's one of the bits that will go on his legacy is the fact that he had such a wide range of roles that he could play. You could go from Jackie Robinson to James Brown to Black Panther and do phenomenal in all of the roles. Really dope. I'm glad he was able to win the awards he won at the time that he won them, and gosh, I'm really caught up. This hit me like when Prince just died out of nowhere. You're like, what? Like, what a horrible way to end the week. I really should have did this live, but I have no words. I'm sorry, y'all. But condolences to his family and his friends and his supporters, and to the fans that are heartbroken. It's that's terrible. I hope everything works out for everybody who's involved within his circle, everybody who he has any kind of connection with, because it's such a tough time to lose people in general. But I think a lot of times people are dealing with a lot of loss, where it's not just isolated situations where people are passing on. I think with the whole pandemic and everything else happening, people are losing a bunch of things, whether it's jobs or things that they have or loved ones, and just their peace of mind, unfortunately. But again, I really think you really have to live life like every day's your last day. That's such a gloom and doom way to look at things, but you just really never know. Really never know. And not to center this on me, but it's crazy because literally I just had another friend that I was like, oh, I haven't heard from them in a minute. I'm like, let me check them out. And so I sent a text and I didn't hear back or anything. And then I found out on Twitter that they died last week. And I'm like, wow. So it's just like crazy. But like I said, condolences to the family. 2020 is just rude, man. This year is tripping for real. Anyway, I'm out. Subscribe.